An identity crisis can be many things. Losing your sense of purpose, a midlife crisis, returning to civilian life, or simply feeling like you don't belong. My life has been one ongoing identity crisis after another. I've started this podcast to help deal with my own demons and negative self-talk, and to ultimately and hopefully learn that I'm not alone, and that these thoughts and feelings aren't unique to me. So if this helps you too, then one by one we can come together, heal ourselves, and move forward with our goals and dreams with a sense of belief, happiness, and purpose. Welcome back to the Identity Crisis Podcast. I'm JNewtz, and my guest today is probably the most special guest I've had on the show. I've known this man for a long time. We've done comedy together, not just individually in pubs, but we've also done comedy as a group for several years. He's a very dear close friend of mine, Mr. Mick Moore. How you doing, buddy?
Doing good, JNewtz. How you doing, buddy?
I am really, really good, and it's so good to talk with you again, because obviously I don't get to see you very often these days, being on the other side of the world. So it's always fantastic to catch up and connect.
Fuck yeah, it is, man. Yeah. You're not just down the street or another suburb. You're in another country. Turns out that England's not in Brisbane, because I suck at geography. I was way off on that one.
Oh no, and to be fair, the weather over here is nothing like Brisbane at all.
No. Is it dark and gloomy and loomy like it is here?
No, it's summertime at the moment, so it's been wonderfully sunny with a bit of gloom attached every now and again. It wouldn't be an English summer without the English rain.
Ah, nice.
Right, now listen, as I said, I've known you for years. You've seen me go through ups and downs. I've seen you go through ups and downs. But I do know for a fact that when I met you, you'd gone through some issues in your life. And when I met you at a pub all those years ago doing an open mic night, you definitely had an interesting story to tell. So what was it about you that got you into comedy to sort of follow your dreams and also change things in your life?
Well, I guess the whole thing about people, when people always, any comedian you say, it's always like, hey, you're a funny guy, you should do comedy and stuff like that. Well, people would say that to me all the time. Anyway, at first I thought it was just okay, cool, I'm just going to do it just for the sake of doing it. And if I bomb, I bomb, and that's okay. It's just another chalk up, another life experience. Problem was, first gig that I did, I absolutely fucking smashed. And smashed in a good way. So unfortunately, that got me hooked. All right. Now, basically, you know what it's like, man, when you've had an absolutely awesome gig and then you'll spend the next 10 gigs trying to chase that high.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that was me. Basically, I had a good gig. The next couple of gigs were okay, not great. But then just every so often, I just would have those awesome gigs. It's like, man, I'm really digging this. And you kind of caught me in I hadn't been doing it long, but I had been doing it, and I was still in that kind of learning about what kind of comedian I'd be phase.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, and anybody who gets into any sort of performing or any artistic thing, you start, I guess, with what you think you like, because you understand a certain style, or you've got a story to tell. But as you evolve as an artist, whether that's a comedian, a writer, a songwriter, singer, whatever, you do develop a style, and that just comes through doing it again and again, and sort of being reflective on yourself and listening to feedback from your audience, and then the way that you sort of tune on how you look at the world, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the thing, even years later now, because I did the maths on it, man. I think we're coming up to 18 years we've been mates for.
Are you serious?
Yeah, I think because it was around about 2004, 2006 is when you had the gig at the Oak Tree Tavern, and I put my name down for it. Came and did it, and then after that, I just kind of reached out to you, hey man, you got any more gigs? And then we just started chatting and stuff, and then it kind of evolved from there.
Wow, that's amazing. Scary and amazing. But I can remember that gig like it was yesterday as well. I really can. But I remember you telling me you'd gone through at that particular time, or you were going through a particular time, a relationship breakup. And I'm not going to mention the lady's name.
No.
I'll never forget your your transition between normal and crazy. Now, obviously, a lot of comedy comes from tragedy and from a bit of sort of sorrow in our lives, and apart from just the quirky shit. What was it about that particular relationship? Because, of course, on stage, you got this, you're this fun guy, you've got this great attitude, but you'd gone through some shit.
Oh, well, I was going through it, and that was also part of the comedy process, and that is because it was a narcissistic relationship, you know what I mean? It was basically, you're in a bad relationship when you come home and she turns around and says to you, hey, my day was going great. I had a really good day, but then I came home and saw your smiling face and it just pissed me off. Ooh. And that was just like, and she said it kind of jokingly, but actually meant it. And that's why I started doing comedy in that, because she would accompany to my first couple of gigs and then she just stopped. She just dropped off because she didn't want me around. And that was fine because we were living together at the time. Part of me thinks that she was also going through some other stuff herself and that, and I think we were just both kind of stuck in this rut of, well, we're together, so let's not break up. But it got to a point where I couldn't handle it, and it was actually mentally draining and stuff. My friends and my family just said, you're a shell of who you were. Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky was just this sorry sack of shit and stuff. And the problem was, and after I broke up with her and stuff, and I started to really concentrate on comedy and that, because it was after the breakup is when you said, hey, look, I've got this thing called the WTS show with Milton. Would you like to come on board? I said, well, I guess I could have hurt my back carrying you two, but not joking. But I said, no, I absolutely loved doing that because it was that new challenge and stuff. Because I was a little bit lost, you know what I mean? I had to move back home with my mum and stuff, and I didn't know what to do. My whole life had just changed and that. But I knew I had to get out of it because it wasn't healthy for both of us. And look, I don't know, I haven't spoken to this person ever again, and that we kind of did our final breakups and goodbyes and deleted each other off socials and that, and she just wasn't a person who I just needed in my life. And I've walked away from this now on that reflection, thinking that yes, she was I think she was going through her own stuff, and unfortunately it was me who had copped the negative side of it, and that has actually affected me for quite a few years. Still does in some, like trying to build new relationships and stuff like that. But it is what it is. You know what I mean? It's something that I have learned from and I have grown from.
Yeah, it really is such a shame how something that, when you look back at things retrospectively, lasts not such. It's a drop in the ocean as far as your lifespan goes. It's such a short time, but it can have such a profound effect for a long time in your life, especially if it's not healed properly. With as you say, she was very toxic in many ways. But how did that start? Because obviously it doesn't start in a sudden hardcore way, because that would be a massive sign where you go, whoa, I'm just leaving. It obviously starts very subtle to begin with. When did you realize that things were starting to become toxic?
When we moved out together.
Right.
And that it all started we were always kind of we'd have little tiffs and stuff, but it was anything too major. But then as soon as we moved out together, shit just changed. My friends and family were not allowed to come over and visit. If I wanted to have a night of I never invited anyone over for dinner, because I said, can I get someone over for dinner? And she'd be like, no, I'm not cooking for them. I don't want to cook for them. I'll do a barbecue because that's my specialty in that. And she'd be like, no, I can't be bothered. No, I'm tired. All right, I don't want people. I'm like, all right, fine. And it just would always end in a big fight. Now, keeping in mind, anytime her friends or family or anyone wanted to come over and visit, it was an open door policy. The amount of times their family, because obviously you know me, I'm a guy who doesn't like to wear pants around the house. It's part of my religion. But every time her family would come over, I would get no warning or anything. They had all seen me without pants on so many times. I just used to rock up, and they were always welcome. I'd always have a meal, and I'd always be allowed there. And that was one thing that was really like, yeah. And then she started fighting with my family and that. She started picking apart on my family. And then she'd be nice to someone and be completely nasty about them behind their back. She always put on this facade of just being a really, nice person and that. And to this day, like, I've had my friends turn around and say, whatever happened to her? You guys were so good together. It's like, mate, you did not know jack shit. And that you did not know what was going on behind the scenes. And no one does. You know what I mean? That's the thing about a narcissist. They can hide their fucking nastiness so well.
And they do. I mean, look, I've had friends who have had narcissists in their relationship. I've had a narcissist that I worked with, and it's horrible because once a narcissist targets somebody or you, they basically go, right, I'm out to destroy you. I just want to ruin you in as many ways as I can, whether that be, lock you into a relationship where you've lost your personality completely and the life you knew is gone, or if it's a business thing, it could be the fact that, you're disgraced and discredited and nothing that you want gets done. Narcissists are some of the most dangerous people and the biggest cunts in the world.
Yeah, for lack of a better word, man. And the biggest problem is that so many times their shit goes unchecked, and that's the thing that kind of pisses me off. Unfortunately, you can't really do anything, and you can try and tell them how much they kind of hurt you and stuff like that, but they won't take it on, and they will never learn from it. They'll never grow from it because they'll always have an excuse as to why it happened. And that was one thing I did notice in that relationship was the fact that, yeah, okay, cool, I'm sorry that, I yelled at you and absolutely ruined your birthday, but it was because I felt you weren't paying enough attention to me. It's like, well, fuck off, dude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, seriously, that's why. And that you can't counteract anything like that. How about we just admit what it was? You're just a dick. And you know what? I'm going to say right now, you know what I mean? I'm not sitting here. I'm not going to be saying that I'm flawless. I'm not that I don't fucking say the wrong thing like all the time. I've been a bit of a dick when it's come to relationships myself, except for this one was just a different thing and I was not prepared for it. And before you knew it, I just was locked into this thing that I could not get out of.
So essentially in a relationship, it became emotional manipulation by the sounds of things.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And then some. Oh yeah. And then basically, yeah, like I said, and just that one day she used to write me notes, these long letters before she'd go shopping about why I suck. And she wrote one to me, and I woke up and I'd worked the night before, and that because that's one thing that I did just to try and avoid her. I was hosting trivia every night, and I was like doing corporates and fundraisers, and I was out of the office working overtime, just trying to stay away from her. And then I woke up one morning and I had another note as to why I suck. It's because, it wasn't because I was never home. It was just because when I was home, I wasn't really there emotionally. It's like, well, anytime I tried to even talk as a normal person to her, and that she just wouldn't have a bar of it. She would turn it around and stuff like that, and it'd be about my family then. It's like, hey, look, I didn't really like the way you spoke to me the other day. And then she'd just be like, well, you know what? I don't like your freaking sister, so fuck you. Like, Jesus Christ. It's like, give me a break here, man. And then it just got to the point where I just stopped talking about anything to her and stuff, and I stopped doing anything. And the only reason I felt that she really wanted me was because I was on two incomes. She had her income and she wanted a house. So, and one of the things she said to me that was a big red flag that I kind of started to kind of push me towards that was the fact that she had the deposit saved up, and I was a little bit short on the deposit, so I couldn't match her, but I was still earning a lot of money, and she was taking that money, we're putting it in an account together and stuff like that, and we were coming close to being able to get a approval for a loan. Anyway, I said to her, and I was a little bit hesitant about it, and she turned around and said, well, you know what, if it doesn't work out, you know what, you can just move out and I'll pay you. And it's like, there's your foot in the door. And that's what I was. And that, but it just was after that note on why I sucked. Anyway, she came home and said, listen, I can't do this anymore, and I'm done. And then I went and stayed with my mum. I went over to my mum's. She wasn't there, so I'd call her up and say, Mum, look, I got to move back home and that. And Mum's like, yeah, fuck yeah, get your ass back here and that. And then she brought me home dinner that night. And then, after that, I got all my stuff back and she kept the house. And I think her mum moved in and yeah, we spoke for a little bit just to do check-ins on each other. And then all of a sudden she just ghosted me and then just blocked me on socials and said, and I got rid of her and all of her friends and everything. But one of the things that did happen is that when I was going through all this shit, there was three people I was talking about this whole breakup with. It's like, I don't know how to break up with this person. You know what I mean? Anyway, I had one mate who was like, just dump the bitch, man, get rid of her. You don't need her, man. Just, clean break. Mm. And then I had another one who's like, well, maybe you got to just keep trying to talk to her and keep working on it and stuff like that. And maybe you should just really know what you want. Have you thought about couples counseling or anything like that? And I'm like, well, no. And then the third one has just turned around and said to me, just dump the bitch, just move the hell out. Anyway, what happened is when I was living with my mum, I still had my computer and some of my stuff at home. Anyway, she hacked my Facebook account and saw that I was talking to three people. Mm-hmm. She didn't read what the two guys had said to me, but the one person who was like, maybe you should try and give it a shot was a girl who I was friends with. Anyway, she immediately just thought I was emotionally cheating on her and therefore I was a piece of shit. So then she went and told her friends and family and everyone ended up hating me because I was this big cheater. And look, I thought that maybe by accepting that, by taking that bullet, it would help her get over me and it would also be the clean break that we both needed. So I kind of took the bullet for that.
And was it?
And then, was that? It was a clean. She still kind of hung around some of my friends and family and was kind of like, I think she's still friends with some of them on Facebook. I'm not too sure. Good luck to them. But yeah, it was kind of like the clean break where it's just like, yep, cool. And then after that, I was able to kind of move on and that I did speak to, that was the first time I actually spoke to someone. I went and had a sit down with just a counsellor just to find out, am I the arsehole and stuff? And the counsellor's like, no, you kind of did the right thing and stuff like that. Unfortunately, she's on her own journey. She has her own problems and obviously she's not going to address them. So, yeah.
Yeah, and look, you just bring up something that's quite common, and which of course is going off to a counsellor. I'm sure that a lot of people have done that. I know that I've done that for different reasons in my life. I guess, going through this horrible toxic relationship where you slowly, get emotionally manipulated and bullied into the ground, your whole life changes, your personality changes, and your happiness vanishes. How do you go about rebuilding your life when you've got to that point where, you're down and out, you're beaten, you're the shell of who you used to be, and you've got nothing to show for it? How do you rebuild your life?
Basically slowly. And that first you gotta kind of learn to love yourself. And that's one thing that I had to learn to do and stuff like that. I had to build my confidence back up. And I had a lot of help in that. I reconnected with a lot of my friends, a lot of my family, and kind of rebuilt myself that way. You know what I mean? It was almost like I went into hibernation, and then as soon as I got out of that relationship, I came out of hibernation and I was ready to hunt. And that it wasn't too long after this girl that I actually started to kind of get on the radar with another girl and stuff like that. But unfortunately, it was a little bit too early in that. But she was very patient with me, and she was very understanding of what I was going through and stuff. And then it was about almost like a year before we actually became officially a couple and stuff. But it was that time for me to kind of build on myself and learn to love myself and be happy with myself.
And that can be a very hard and long process depending on how you're feeling, how emotionally scarred you are, or whatever it is that you're feeling. I mean, I've gone through that process myself, and it's basically, whilst I've never surfed at all, I can imagine it'd be very much like surfing, where you go, oh, that was easy, and then there's a wave that comes along and go, whoa, that was challenging, and then there'll be something that just knocks you off completely, and you go, oh, it's going to be hard to get back onto the surf. Learning to love yourself through any healing process can be a very long-winded process because there's a part of it that feels like you can never do it.
Yep, and that's exactly it. And that's the main thing you've got to do, especially when you've got from someone that's kind of turned you into a shell of a human being. You've got to try and learn to be happy again. You know what I mean? And that was one of the things that kind of like plagued this like newer relationship that I was trying to get into, was the fact that I had this kind of like, you know, she would do something for me, and then it's like, what the fuck, man? Why is she doing that? What's she up to? What's her game? What's her plan? Why is she doing that? Is it so she can lock it in the fight bank and then bring it up later on? I'm not too sure what's going on here. So you kind of hit that with that kind of unawareness of what's going on, and you don't know what the hell to do. You know what I mean? And it's just like someone's being nice to you for the first time. It's like, what are they up to? And that's happened, like, obviously later on in relationships and stuff like that. It's really hard to try and decipher what people are up to and what their motivations are.
Yeah, and I was actually going to say to you, when it comes to other relationships, how did that experience affect relationships? Because, I mean, surely you'd be on your guard all the time thinking, is this person also going to be a narcissist? Am I going to get even more fucked up? I mean, what's it like getting back into the dating scene after going through such a horrible ordeal?
Well, I didn't actually get back into the dating scene. I just spent that time. I wasn't ready to date, and that I spent that time working on myself and being happy with myself. And the girl who I got into the relationship with, she was very patient. She was absolutely awesome. And unfortunately, we came to different parts in our life and did not work out. But that person, she kind of showed me what real love was. You know what I mean? And that was something that I will always hold dear, is the fact that she was patient enough and understood what was going on and was cool enough. She obviously had come from a bad relationship herself, so she was a little bit hesitant. Both of us were, to let that guard down. But it came to a point where we were just like, you know what? Fuck it. You know, sometimes you just got to take that plunge and just trust the person you're with. And we did. And obviously we had a really great relationship for quite a few years. We were together on that until a few years ago. Unfortunately, that did, that's another story. I'm not too sure if you want to go into that, if there's another question you want to ask.
Look, I mean, if you're happy to talk about it, then we can definitely talk about it.
Yeah, well, obviously we had gotten a house together and we had built the life together, and then unfortunately a couple of tragic events happened in my life. That caused me to reassess what I wanted, and unfortunately both of us wanted different things, and it just did not work out.
I do want to talk to you about some of those events, because I think that they're very deep events, they're very heavy events. But before we get into that properly, what I wanted to ask is, you talked to me about, obviously you got into comedy, you got the bug because you had a great first gig. How did pursuing a creative process help you in rebuilding your life and your self-love and everything else like that to move into things like, you know, following dreams? You know, you've hosted trivia for such a long time, which has led to a great career for you. You ended up having another amazing relationship. You know, you've done all these things. We've traveled Australia and the world doing comedy together. You know, but talk to me about pursuing a creative process to further your life and going through that learning to love yourself process.
Well, to try and do it, the best thing that I did was, as soon as I kind of got out of that toxic relationship and that, I started to do comedy again. I started to find my love for comedy again. And the way I found it, and the way I found my voice, was by starting to talk about stuff that was related to me. Now, anyone knows me knows that I have a tendency to, like, I do dumb shit, and I'm happy with it, man, because it always makes for a good story. No good story starts with a salad, a great salad. You know what I mean? That's the philosophy I start. You know, beer, because no great story starts with a great salad. But that was me, and I started to kind of talk to people about just my general fuck ups at life, and it showed a kind of human side to me that people related to and people got, and therefore that's how I kind of built who I was and who I became. And I started, a lot of me was kind of on the stage as well, you know what I mean? I was kind of kind of putting myself out there to people, which I wasn't able to do for such a long time. And people were receptive to it. Some people weren't. Some people were. I'd have shitty nights that would fucking get me down and steal my confidence. I had to build that back up. But when you have people in your corner and stuff like that do hold you up, they're the ones that, you know, are always great. You know what I mean? They're the ones that like help get your confidence back up. You've got to have your JNewtz's, your Miltons, you know what I mean? Your Stephs, your Bens, your other Bens, your Sarahs, your freaking Robs, your Nathans, your Drews, your fucking, your Andy Andys, your Dans, your Richies, your Steves, your everyone, every single people. You surround yourself with the people that are going to help lift you up. And it wasn't until I really opened myself up and let these people in, because friends were always, to me, a kind of surface level thing, but these were friends that I actually let into my world. And from there, they're just like, boom, thanks for coming out. And that was where I kind of built myself up, surrounded myself with a nice, positive environment with good people.
And that is actually the thing about being in any creative circle, whether that be comedy or music or whatever it might be. As like you've got these wonderful people with a great creative outlet that you're sharing, so you connect on that particular level, and becoming not just associates but friends with some of these people. It is amazing, and I mean, there's a whole bunch of names in there that, I mean, I can also say they're friends of mine as well, and of course we've had them involved in things that we've done. They've supported us, we've supported them. And it is really, really good. And it's interesting because I think if you reflected upon it, you'd think to yourself, had I not met these people through my creative outlet, the chances of us meeting would have been almost zero. And if I did meet you, we definitely wouldn't be friends because I wasn't in that same circle. And it's amazing how you can meet and connect with some of the most fascinating people who can help to change your life or improve your life or enrich your life for the better from the most unexpected ways.
Yep, absolutely. And that's the thing, is that you look back on it and it's just like, that's one thing I do a lot of as well, and people should do, is be reflective on where you are and how you got there. You know, because I'm the person I am today because of these people that I've met. Like, I'll give you an example. Steph Jarek, very funny man, good friend of ours, been in a few of our sketches as well.
Correct.
He actually posted in the Comedy Rooms Hub, hey, looking for trivia people. If anyone wants a gig, let us know. If anyone's doing it. So I actually ended up applying for it. And the guy who I applied for it with, you've had on your podcast, his name's Paulie.
Of course.
Yes. Well, Paulie was running the business at the time and he hired me straight away. Anyway, I did quite a few filling gigs, and then I said to Paul, you know, if there's ever any office work going on, please let me know. He's like, yeah, absolutely. And then it started off that, you know, hey, there's a few hours here if you want. I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. And then that few hours turned into event management. And yeah, basically that's what I do now. I'm a comedian, but I'm also an awesome event manager in that. But it's that was from Steph. Steph put me in contact with Paul. Paul got in contact with me, and you yourself, JNewtz, you've done some trivia through us as well, haven't you?
Well, I have, and of course that's because Paulie came to one of our shows and basically approached myself and Milton and said, "Hey, you guys, have you ever thought about it?" I'm like, "Oh yeah, fair enough." And look, I mean, I remember attending many of your shows as a quiz master, as a trivia host, and it was really good because I remember saying to you, you know, Quizmaster Mick, you know, if you can bring that to your comedy persona on stage, people will love you. And I've seen how over the years that's happened, but hearing everything that you've spoken to me about, you know, the toxic relationship and rebuilding your life and so forth, trivia must have been such a wonderful, positive thing to do to really help to rebuild yourself, because you find yourself, you can express yourself, you're learning to laugh, you make friends, you make associates, and in some cases, like in your case, you can unexpectedly find love.
Exactly.
So talk to me about that process. Like, what was it about trivia that you loved? Like, because obviously you don't do something if you don't enjoy doing it.
Well, I guess it was the thing that I love about trivia is the fact that everyone just, like, people will go to trivia nights no matter what. You know what I mean? It doesn't matter whether you're good or you're not. You know what I mean? I did fill-in gigs for people and that, and people are there to do trivia. But then you do have those ones that are there because it's their weekly function, and they're there to see you. And to feel that kind of love as well, it's just like, fuck yeah, I dig that. I'll be down with that. And basically that's what happened. Is that it was just every week I'd go to a bunch and see a bunch of people who wanted to see me. You know what I mean? To feel that kind of reciprocation, it was like, fuck yeah, please. And it was also, man, you get paid to talk shit on a microphone for 2 hours. Fuck yes.
It really is. It really is amazing. I mean, I remember when I used to have my regular crowd. I used to push the line as much as I could and think, where is that line? And there was a few times where it's like, ooh, I think I've almost reached it, but I never really crossed it. And you're right, it was amazing because if you just allow yourself to just get to know your audience and have fun with them, and they get to know you, you can really. It's not just a fact of, oh, this is a game for them and they get to, go out with their friends and have a drink, have a meal, play a game of trivia and just, be out of the house for a few hours. You've got the ability and the power to give them an incredible entertaining experience where they go, it's not just a fun game, but it's a fun environment to be in. Like it's a warm environment. It's funny. It's jovial. No one's looking across the table thinking, "Oh, who the fuck are you?" If you do it properly and you just let yourself go, I suppose it's that trivia family thing, isn't it?
Yeah. And some of those people have followed me to different venues. You know what I mean? I still see some of them. I'm friends with some of them on Facebook. They always shoot me a message. How you been? What have you been up to? What's been going on and stuff. And it's great. It's great to know that you've met people that, you've made that impact on.
Yeah, and actually the other thing is, and this is somebody that we both know quite well. He's a good friend of both of ours, but he's come from trivia, and that's Paul Basili, because he started coming to trivia with you, with his partner and friends. He then started coming to my venue, and through talking to the both of us, he's like, I wouldn't mind giving comedy a go, so we gave him a go at one of our open mic nights at one of the pubs. And of course, now he's regularly doing his own thing in Melbourne with several other comedians. So it's fantastic. Once again, that you can meet somebody through the most basic of means, and they can become friends and go down different life paths, and you're still connected with them.
Yep, absolutely, and it's great. It's great to know that there's people out there and stuff like that you've It's weird the way you've met them, but you can still consider them friends. And it's weird the way you make friends. It's great, you know what I mean? Instead of having that person from primary school who you used to eat dirt with, you got someone who you just met at a bar because you were hosting trivia and they've asked you about something, and there you go. Every time, because I saw Paul the other week, caught up with him, and that he came into trivia and stuff. Asked him, when's your next gig? What are you doing? We like swapping stories about different things that we're doing and shit, and it was really good.
It's amazing. It really is. I mean, the fact that you can find friendships through trivia is fantastic. And if anybody's listening who has ever thought about hosting trivia, or if you want an amazing idea to just go out there and have some fun, go out there and work for a trivia company, because you really can have the most amazing time and the most amazing experiences. And like I said before, in the case of you, fine sir, every now and again you can find someone who you can start a relationship with. So how did that start?
Yes. Well, that started with her just coming in, and that was obviously the one that I met after Toxic, and that she was coming in on the regular. Her and her friend used to come in, and they were lovely people and stuff, and then we kind of got to chatting, and that's how we kind of met, and then we started hanging out a bit, and then after that we started dating, and then after that started to she moved in with me for a little while, me and my mum, while we saved for a house. And then after that, we got a house. And, unfortunately, the rest is a pretty horrific story, but yes.
Yeah, absolutely. And we'll touch upon that. And well, first of all, before we get into that, talk to me about the differences between going from a toxic relationship into one which was an amazing relationship that was quite long-lasting. How did that one make you feel? Because clearly you weren't used to a good relationship.
Oh, no, fuck no, man. Like I said, there was a lot of baggage I brought with me. There was a lot of fucking, a lot of, almost hesitation and that. And it was always like, what's she up to? What's she doing? You know what I mean? What does she mean by that? She brought me to McDonald's. Is it poison? Is that what she's doing to me? She's trying to poison me? Is that what it is? You know what I mean? You always have these fucking, kind of on the back foot with someone. And it will always happen. And that when you start a new relationship and stuff, you're always on the back foot worrying, what's this person up to? What's their end game? But it turns out she didn't have an end game. She was just looking for love as well. And we both connected for that reason.
Yeah, that's a very, very good point. I mean, I know I've had relationships before where you don't mean to bring the baggage with you, but you've always got your guard up, as they say. My guard's still up. I haven't brought my guard down just yet. I need to trust the person before I bring my guard down. We've all heard it. We've all either said it or thought about it in our own different ways. And it is interesting, and it basically comes down to self-preservation, doesn't it? Because you don't want to not only relive what you've gone through, but you don't want to get any worse mentally or emotionally than you currently are.
Yeah, and I never want to feel like I did when I was in that relationship, man. Never in a million fucking years do I ever want to feel that again, because it was one of my lowest points, and it was just horrific.
Yeah,
it was just like I don't want this ever again. And so, yeah, but the good thing is that you got to, going into a relationship, and this is something that everyone should always do, is don't just go in whole hog. Always have your guard up and that, but don't be afraid to fucking maybe feel something. You know what I mean? That's the biggest problem in that. And I found that after, unfortunately, when we broke up, like trying to date from there, everyone was just like, they'd all been tarnished from previous relationships, and they were all had their guards up. And it got to a point where I used to turn around and say to them, listen, I'm not your ex, so I'm going to stop apologizing for it. It's like, but he used to do that. It's like, what, he used to like be nice to you. It's like, yeah, but then he had something else going. It's like, yeah, but that's not me. Get to know me. No, that's not me. And we can move on. But the problem is that everyone has so much baggage, they still wear it like a crown, and no, they're not willing to grow. They're just in this kind of bubble of self-preservation where it's like the fight or flight, and it's got to the point where it's like, and there's been people that I've dated and thought, well, I could see something happening here, and just got to the point where it's just like, I'm protecting myself. So, it's just like, I've got this, I've got that. It's like, well, you do, except for, you don't have to have that with me. You don't know me, you don't trust me, but I'm giving you an opportunity to get to know me. And unfortunately, they don't take that opportunity up, and that's fine. Each to their own. They've obviously got their own growing to do.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it comes down to, self-esteem, self-love. Everyone heals at different times in their lives. I think everyone has heard the expression, the right person at the wrong time. I mean, I know there's definitely somebody in my life who I have classified as the right person at the wrong time. But then at the same time, you also look back and go, okay, but then look at what I've learned through that process and through those years and so forth. And, it kind of somehow all works out in some ways, but there definitely is that whole right person, wrong time element to it. But look, you rebuild your confidence, you learn to love yourself, you get into comedy, you get into trivia, you start to build this amazing career, you find love, things are going well. Then the pandemic hits, we're all locked at home. We go through all of our mental head case shit there, and I don't want to dwell upon that because everyone has gone through that all over the world. But then, in your case, not just one tragedy happened, but essentially in a very short time, you got the trifecta. And they say that everything happens in threes, and I can't think of anybody else in my life who has gone through such traumatic things in such a short time. So, what happened? Because, I mean, it's a huge story. Yep. It's a deep story. For anyone who's listening there right now, please get some tissues ready, because it's not a happy story. And if you're easily triggered, this could offend you, but this is unfortunately life. So, Mick, what was it that happened in your life in that particular period?
Well, basically, my dad got diagnosed with cancer, and he was given 6 months to live. That was horrible, but then it actually went dormant. And and so then he was going to be not okay. You're still going to have to do regular checkups, and maybe it might come back. Unfortunately, it did come back. It came back quite aggressive, and we all were there for him, and we're all chipping in to make sure he was going to be okay. Now, it happened around about Christmas 2020, I think it was, when we had just gotten out of all the lockdowns and shit. It's basically we got told that Dad, the cancer had spread, and he was basically going to start to decline rapidly. So we heard that. We spent Christmas with him, and then after we got out of Christmas around January, he did start around. Actually New Year's, he started to decline rapidly, and then we went to the other lockdown on the borders and stuff like that. But he managed to get back with my sister. After that, it was, he's going to decline. He's going to pass away. Now that I was kind of prepared for, because it had been a long time coming. We had about a couple of years of dealing with this, and shout out to my sister, who was amazing through the whole process, because she took him to all of his appointments and stuff like that. Anyway, my dad had one request, just one, and that was that he wanted to die at home with his family. So for the last, and not surrounded by strangers, so for the last kind of couple of weeks, when he started to go palliative, where he couldn't actually function, me, my brother, and my sister, we all kind of gathered round and we took care of him and stuff as he declined to the point where he passed away peacefully. That was it. It was expected. It was still a sad thing. Unfortunately, while that was happening, my mum and dad got divorced when I was younger, but they still remained friends. And my mum was kind enough to give her house to my dad so he could pass away peacefully. My mum went and stayed at my house out in the Yarra Valley. And while she was out in the Yarra Valley, she developed this kind of lung infection. So she ended up going into hospital. It turns out the lung infection was worse than what they thought. They ended up having to drill into her lung to drain out the fluid. And it was when they did that, they found out she had cancer herself.
Oh, wow.
So my dad had just passed away. And then we just found out my mum had cancer as well. Now, mum was unfortunately unable. There was no treatment, had come on quite aggressively. So then about a month later, after my dad had passed away, my mum had then passed away. And again, she wanted to go palliative and be surrounded by family. So she passed away in the house, the same room that my dad passed away in, about a month and a bit later. So that was like the double hit. So before I could even grieve Dad, Mum got diagnosed, and it was just like, shit. Yeah. All right, here you go. So we got hit with that.
And I remember that day so clearly, because I remember we caught up during the day. You came to my place, and we caught up because we hadn't seen each other for a while because of all the lockdowns and other bits and pieces. And I was asking how things were, and you were talking about, look, Mum's going palliative, and your girlfriend at the time was helping. And then literally it was that night. I think it was the next day. You said to me, I think it was like midnight or something like that, and she passed away. And like that to me was one of those days. It's etched on my mind, because I remember seeing you through the day. We'd spoken about things and so forth, and it makes you reflect to go, look at what can happen in the space of 12 hours or 24 hours. It was, it was just incredible. From a bad point of view, by the way, incredible. And I'll never forget that day. I'll never forget that day, because from a friend's point of view, watching someone go through that process of losing both their parents in less than 4 weeks, I cannot, still to this day, imagine what that's like. The weird thing about our friendship, especially with Milton, we've kind of sort of had this sort of hidden running sort of thing in a way, that the WTF show is kind of connected via cancer, because Milton's he's had people in his life who have gone through that. You've lost both your parents to cancer. I lost my uncle to cancer shortly after your mum passed away, about 6 or 7 months after that. And it's sort of weird how the three of us have all had that experience in different aspects of our lives and family. And I couldn't relate to the both of you until I'd gone through that process myself. But even now, because it was my uncle rather than my parents, I still can never relate to what you went through. But like I said, going through that in such a short time, I mean, how the fuck did that make you feel, man?
Oh, dude, it fucking killed me. Well, actually, no, it didn't kill me, because what I did is what you shouldn't do, is which I pushed every single one of my emotions down to the belly of my stomach and did not address them at all.
Mm.
And that I didn't seek out any professional treatment. I didn't talk about it with anyone. I just pushed it down, and that's what I kept doing for another year. And that I think it was around about November, after Mum had passed away, that I actually started to kind of take stock and start, in a sense, checking in with myself, and just started thinking, Mick, what do you actually want? What's going on then? Because I was just kind of sleepwalking through shit. And that was when I kind of came to started to think about what I wanted. And it wasn't until I still didn't really properly know, and then I went and sought out counselling. And look, it was good, but it wasn't. That's the thing about when you do therapy and that, and I'm going to say this right now, you've got to find someone who is on your level, and bless the person who had me, but she wasn't really that person for me. And I just was kind of talking. I didn't feel like it was getting what I wanted from it. So I stopped going. And then after that, I just kept on going and going and going. And then it came to a bit of a head around about, I think it was around about March and April is when I started to kind of really take stock on what I wanted. And I started to talk to my partner at the time about it. Unfortunately, there was something that I wanted that she could not give me because she never wanted it. And we had both agreed. I don't want to go into details about it, but we both were on different pages of it. And unfortunately, it wasn't something we could both agree on. So unfortunately, we did have to part ways. Not amicably, because we had built our life together. And and from there, unfortunately, we broke up, and we both went in our different directions and that. Now, instead of maybe seeking out professional help after that, I did not. I went and just pushed it back down into the stomach and that, and it started to kind of really play on my mind. And that was actually around about, I think it was around about June, July is when I moved in with a guy, because I was like kind of couch surfing with my friends. You know, I needed to find a place, so I moved in with a guy. And then for the first time in my life, I was like truly alone, because he worked nights, I worked nights, and so we'd only occasionally cross paths when we got each other Maccas after work. Mm-hmm. And it was kind of in that loneliness that I started to kind of really my feelings just got on top of me. My whole brain got on top of me. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't eating. The grief was just driving me nuts. I was doing these random bouts of just fucking crying. And I just, you know, like I kind of like, it was about 2 months out of the breakup and that. I was seeing a girl, but I wasn't seeing a girl and stuff like that. We're just kind of hanging out, and it was way too soon. And we were getting along fine and that, but then my brain just could not, my cognitive brain was just fucked. I couldn't talk myself off the edge. And so I started to like really get worried about, you know, who she was and what she was up to and that, and, you know, and then I don't think she was in a place to handle it herself. So then she kind of like, you know, hey, look, I just think you need time to heal and stuff. And, you know, maybe we should just put a pause on this. And I was cool with that. And she's like, but I still want to see you and stuff. I'm like, all right, cool. And then I think, fuck, man, I saw her like 3 times in 4 months. And every time I tried to reach out to her and that, she just kind of would brush me off. And it'd be like, you know, I wouldn't hear from her. And it's just so, and then it just kind of came to a head. And it's like, you know, what the fuck, dude? You know, what's going on? You know, we used to hang out and now we're not. And that's just like, oh, you know, I'm just really busy. I'm isolating. I'm doing my own thing. The biggest problem I have with her is that I don't think she was ready herself. Mm-hmm. And I think I was. And that's why it kind of didn't work out, which is great. Only because, well, it's not great, but the thing was just that we both were at different places, and those different places sometimes just can't work out. And I think a lot of it had to do, and one thing that I did kind of do, I took a bit of advice from her, which I shouldn't have, which was, she's like, you just got to, it's something you got to do by yourself. It's something you've got to heal yourself, and you got to love yourself. You got to do it all by yourself. And so I started to do it all by myself. And guess what? It didn't get fucking easier. I stopped drinking. I stopped, dabbling in fucking, fucking parties and stuff like that. I stopped doing, living my life, and that I started to just really take stock, and my brain just could not get fucking right. And, and that was the problem, is that going through the breakup with obviously the one that I wanted different things with, we'll call her B, and that start with a B. The problem with B was that, the first one, the narcissist, when I broke up with her, I just went to mum's, and mum was there. Like, pretty much, she came home the night I broke up with her, and I was sitting on the couch. My mum came home with a 10-pack of Canadian Club and some ham steaks, which was my favourite meal. She cooked me dinner, and we had a couple of drinks. And I still remember that. She just pretty much raced. She actually knocked off work half an hour early to come home. And the problem was that when I went through the breakup, I didn't have mum's home to go to. I had my brother, I had my sister, but they were going through their own stuff. They got families, and that, I couldn't rely on them. I had no mum home to go home to, and that was what was fucking killing me.
Of course.
So, yeah. And that was also another thing that kind of played into it. And that's when I just hit that kind of mental health rock bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we spoke earlier on in the podcast about rebuilding your life after, a toxic relationship, but how the hell do you rebuild your life after losing your dad, losing your mum, and then losing a long-term relationship? Like, how do you mentally rebuild from that?
You get on dating apps and, get to meet really awesome people. No, you don't. You don't. And that,
Tinder is the answer to all your problems.
Yeah, well, fucking Grindr's got no women on it, man. I found that out the hard way. Anyway, but the biggest problem is that, after the whole, this girl who I was kind of seeing but not seeing after her, and that, we pretty much cut ties and shit like that, and I was done with her, and that she was not a person for me. And look, I don't hold anything against her. I wish her the best on her journey and stuff. But the problem was that I started to date, which was really fucking stupid because I was not fucking ready, and I did not love myself. One thing I did find was, in all that darkness, the one thing that kind of did help me was fucking comedy. And that, because I was able to bring that sadness onto the stage and find a funny part to it, and people really resonated with it.
Yeah. And do you know what?
That was...
I keep thinking about this every now and again, and for anybody who's listening, they're probably thinking, wow, that's so insensitive. But I remember when you told me that your mum had cancer. I remember very vividly being in the car, and you said to me, everything that, Dad ever did, Mum had to one-up her. So, like, Dad does this, Mum does this, and Dad did this, and Mum does this. And then you said to me, Dad's like, hey, I've got cancer, I'll take 5 years to die. And Mum's like, fuck you, I'll do it in 3 weeks. And I remember laughing, going, hang on, whoa, that's so fucking dark. But the thing is, comedy's a weird thing. It can be so cathartic in its healing, because I was amazed that in such a short time through that process, as all that was happening in your life, you were still able to make a dark joke. And that, in some ways, that is also the beginning of the healing process, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely is. And that was the thing, because I went and I actually finally booked into a psychologist, and that I finally started to seek out that thing. And the psychologist, I still do, it's been a few years, but I still do quarterly check-ins, just mental health check-ins with her and stuff. And talking to her really helped. And it was when it was with her, she pretty much turned around and said to me, just so you know, well, I actually went and got, this is a true story. I went to the doctor, and the doctor said, hey, I needed a mental health plan, so I needed to see a doctor so the doctor could give me a referral. I said to the doctor, hey, listen, he's like, what's wrong? I'm like, oh, okay, cool. Well, listen, I lost my parents a year ago, and I haven't been coping well with the grief. I just broke up with my now ex-partner, and I'm having trouble sleeping, eating, and I think I'm depressed, and I think I'm having really trouble like getting out of this real sadness, and I'm in a really, really bad space. And the doctor turned around and said, man, that's messed up. I'm like, what? And he's like, yeah. It's like, yeah, let's get you in a mental health plan, mate. So then they did, and then I started trusting that process. But what happened is, it was the first time someone actually said to me, hey, this is what's wrong with you. You know what I mean? Like I had unresolved grief. I had PTSD. I had anxiety, unresolved grief. I think I said that, but yeah, it was PTSD, unresolved grief, anxiety, insomnia, which was caused by the anxiety, and just all this fucking like whole plethora of what was wrong with me, depression, everything. And to me, depression was always the thing that you have and it makes you suicidal, but depression isn't like that, you know what I mean? Because I never felt suicidal. I just felt so fucking sad and so alone and so just down on myself. And it was just like, that depression has many faces, and your one is just crippling sadness.
And it's a dark, dark bitch. And actually, the best description I've ever heard of depression, and it actually only happened recently. One of my guests on the show, Porov Sarkov, he put it in the most amazing, succinct way I've ever had it put across. And he says, "Is it depression or is it grief?" And that, I mean, that opened my eyes so much, because I was like, wow. And it made me think of certain times in my life where I've been, depressed. But then on reflecting on those periods, I'm like, actually, no, I was grieving. And there is a huge difference between the grieving process and severe depression. And in your particular case, like the psychologist said, it's like, yeah, that is fucked up, but you went through the grief of losing a parent, losing another parent, and then the grief of losing a long-term relationship. And they do say that when a relationship ends, especially if it's been meaningful to you, it is that grieving process, like that whole sort of 5 steps or whatever it is of going through grief. And I know that you've explored that before through comedy, but to go through basically the 5 steps of grief tripled with everything else that's sort of underlying that hasn't been healed from the past, like as you said, PTSD and other bits and pieces. I mean, Christ, that's what a journey that is. And you are right, depression, it's a bitch, and it can fuck you up for a long time if you don't handle it properly.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing that kind of got me through, is the fact that, because doing the whole thing was that I wasn't actually allowing myself to feel feelings and stuff like that. So I still had this mentality that I've got to do it alone. You know what I mean? And I didn't have to, you know what I mean? I can feel what I was feeling, because the biggest problem is with like seeing this girl so kind of fresh out of it and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I couldn't tell her how I was feeling and shit like that, because she would just kind of write off my feelings as, you're just going through grief. Oh yeah, you're just depressed. Don't worry about it. And that was the thing, is that she would say to me, hey, look, I'm here for you. If you want to talk, we'll talk. I'm here for you and stuff. I'm like, oh, great. And so I'll kind of message her. It's like, hey, I'm really struggling. Can we chat? So, I'm tired. Oh, no, I'm asleep. Oh, no, don't worry about it. I'll give you a call later. And then she never would. And it's just like, well, fuck, man. So that was that kind of made me like feel alone and feel not worth anything. And it was kind of really fucking, it was bad, because when I started to see a psychologist, I was kind of resistant to it. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, no, it's not like that. I'm not that person. I'm not this. I'm not that. And then it wasn't until, I think it was just after Christmas, I think 2023, is when I turned around and I said, you know what? No, I'm allowed to feel the fuck what I'm feeling. You know what I mean? I'm allowed to have these emotions. I'm allowed to have these thoughts. I'm allowed to be sad. I'm allowed to fucking ride that wave of pain. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the thing is, as you know from experience, if you bottle it up, it's not healthy.
And it took like, even to this day, you know what I mean? Like I said, I do have my down days, and that everyone does. And it's being able to kind of pick yourself back up and just ride that wave of pain. And then all of a sudden you feel a little bit better about yourself. That's when you start feeling it again. And now you know that time does kind of heal, but it doesn't. You just learn to kind of cope with it all. And having those coping strategies in place are the ones that kind of, you know, get me through what I'm going through and stuff. And, you know, like obviously I started this year has been a bit of an interesting one, you know what I mean? Because I was kind of seeing this person and that, and then she, it was actually, it's funny because it was the girl who I wasn't seeing, but I was. But yeah, we kind of reconnected. And then unfortunately, I felt like I had grown and I was ready and stuff. And I realized that, you know, like we were kind of hanging out and stuff. And, you know, it was kind of the same thing from her, you know what I mean? It's like, hey, let me know when you want to hang out. And I wouldn't hear from her and that, or, you know, it's like, yeah, we can hang out, but I'm going to give you this like 3-hour block or 4-hour block. And in the meantime, I'm going to hang out with all these other people and stuff like that. And it's just like, well, that's not what I want. And we kind of talked about it. And then we kind of, again, it was like that whole, hey, let's just put a pause on this. I'm not ready and stuff. And I'm like, all right, cool. So then I thought I'd still be her friend and still kind of message her, you know, let's hang out. You know, I've got people coming over and all that stuff. Let me be your friend. But unfortunately, she just like, it kind of taught me that sometimes people haven't changed. And although I do feel part of it was me, I now know that it wasn't all me and that, you know what I mean? This person isn't the person for me. We're different energy levels, and what we want and what we are striving for are two different things. So don't get me wrong, I don't hate this person. I wish her all the best in her journey. I hope she finds love. I hope she finds the happiness that she deserves. I just know it ain't fucking with me, because basically I have a certain, I want someone who will meet me on that energy, you know, like, and I want someone who will, you know, obviously put in that effort and want to spend time with me. This person showed no signs of that. And although it was kind of like saying that they did, they kind of didn't. They're the same person, unfortunately, that I parted ways with years ago. And yeah, unfortunately, that person's got a bit of growing up to do and a bit of healing to do themselves. And I can't be there. That's just not with me. Yeah. And I'm kind of happy about that, because it made me like look at dating in a different sense. And I did that. I did date in a different sense. You know, I've seen girls this year and that, and there's been a few that haven't really been people for me, and I've let them know that they're just not feeling it, and they know it and stuff. And I've been true to myself, and I've kind of stuck by my morals and my sense of self-worth. And when someone isn't giving me what I want or what I believe I want and what I reciprocate, if I'm not getting that same energy, sorry, we're done. And unfortunately, it's like, you know, it hasn't worked out, but obviously I won't go into too much detail because it is kind of fresh, but I've recently started seeing someone, and yeah, she's fucking amazing. And that she is, and she's met me on that energy level, and she likes to spend time with me, and she does this thing, what's it called? Respects my time, and I respect her time, and we respect each other. You know what I mean?
And that's amazing,
something that I hadn't had.
I mean, as humans, there's some very basic things that we need that don't cost anything, that we just need to feel happy and worth and just to sort of vibe. And giving someone time and respect or space or just being there for them, it's those basic qualities that make us human that are really all we need. And I mean, I think a lot of us learnt that during all the lockdowns. And if you didn't learn that, then you're just a fucking idiot, because you clearly didn't reflect upon your life very much. But the lockdowns for me really taught the world, or showed me that when you take away the basic things that humans need, like connection, happiness, you know, being physically together with somebody in a room rather than just talking to somebody through a phone or through a computer screen, that physical connection, you know, and the respect and so forth. Those are the things that really mean the most in the world. It's nothing else. It's not about success and money and, you know, possessional things like cars and houses and whatever else it might be. It really comes down to the basic basic elements of what it is to be human, to give to somebody and to receive from somebody. And in relationships especially, it's the most important thing. And if you're dating somebody who isn't respectful of you or your time or the grief you might be going through, I mean, there are people out there, and I put myself in this boat as well, where you could be going through a lull in your life. And if your partner's not understanding and they just see it as, oh, well, just, deal with it and just get over it and now pay attention to me, it makes you feel even worse, and people need to just say, I'm here for you. If you need some time, I'll give you some time. But unfortunately, not everyone can do that. And it's not because they don't think they want to do that. It's just because it just doesn't work that way. Subconsciously, they just don't give it to you or whatever it might be. So when you do find that somebody who connects on that level and gives you what you need, not so much what you want, but what you need, then those people become special.
Yeah, exactly. And that was the thing. It's one thing I did find out is that a lot of people will say, I'm here for you, but they're not.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit. They just want to say it to make themselves feel better. Because when you try and call them on that stuff, they ain't going to fucking do it. You know what I mean? And it was just it's that kind of like, well, don't say it if you can't back it up. I understand you've got a life, you've got your own thing to do, that's fine. But I'll always be that person and I'll give you what I can. You know what I mean? And I feel that some people, and this is, I think, remnant of the lockdowns, is that people don't everyone's out for themselves sometimes. And it shouldn't be that way. It should be everyone, in a sense, loves everyone and stuff, you know what I mean? But also just show everyone respect, show love and respect. That's all you have to show people. And you know what? Some people are going to take advantage of that. It's happened to me, you know what I mean? I've given someone time in that I thought was going through stuff, and I tried to be there for them, and they turned out to be like not willing to grow, you know what I mean? And that was the thing that kind of made me, I shouldn't laugh at it and stuff like that, but she, I hope she does seek out the help in that, but I wanted to get her into a mental health plan because she was dealing with so much shit. I wanted her to try and cut down on the gambling, the drinking and everything. I wanted her to succeed at life. Anyway, I didn't speak to her for a little while. I said, have you sought out professional help? Have you done any work on yourself? She's like, yes, I listened to a podcast. Like, and? She's like, yes, I listened to a podcast. It's like, well, dude, okay. Unfortunately, you can listen to this. And look, guys, if you are going to listen to this, don't use this as your therapy. Use this as your bridge, something that's going to actually propel you to seek it out. Absolutely. You know what I mean? I'm not a qualified therapist, and I, pretended to be one for legal purposes and to rip people off. No, I'm joking, but but that's the thing. You've got to do the work on yourself.
And you're right. And the thing is, the healing process, it can be a short-term thing. It can be a long-term thing. Listening to a podcast can be a beneficial thing. I mean, for example, with me, with this Identity Crisis podcast, I've done this to not just help myself with my own little battles that I've got, but also to hopefully help other people as well realize that what they may be thinking, feeling, and going through isn't completely unique to them. But I wouldn't say, but listening to this podcast will solve all your problems. Absolutely not. You still need to put your own work in and learn how to love yourself, talk to a professional, and do all these other things that together create the big picture of healing. You can't just go to one source.
Yeah. What you're doing is you're creating a cog in that wheel of life. You're creating a cog, and use this cog, you know what I mean? If you're going to take anything away from this, you know what I mean? It's that you're not alone. And you can heal yourself. You just got to put in the time. You got to love yourself.
Absolutely.
And surround yourself with good people.
That is the secret, isn't it? If you're surrounded by good people, whether they be, family, friends, partners, that really is the key, because the right people can elevate you and the wrong people can just throw you right down to the ground.
Yeah. And that's one thing I found lately, you know what I mean? I love my friends, I love my family and stuff like that, and this girl I'm seeing, she's fucking amazing. And she is, she's matched me on every single fucking element to it, every little bit of it, you know what I mean? Like, doesn't understand what I'm going through, hasn't tried to understand what I'm going through. Is being patient, understanding, and love and respect. That's what we show each other, and that's something that I think everyone should do. Love and respect.
Absolutely. Now, listen. Last question for you, Mr. Moore, before we sign off. What does the future hold? What does the future hold for you? You're getting back into comedy. You're continuing with your comedy. How's the career going? What do you see the future of? What's the future hold?
For me, it is right about now. I've rebuilt myself. I'm back there, and now I'm rebuilding comedy, and I'm falling in love with comedy again. So we did Edinburgh, and that was like the fucking best experience of my life. And since we got back from there, I've just been hitting those open mics. I've had my highs, I've had my lows, but I'm kind of tapping into something new for myself, and I'm loving every fucking second of it. So yeah, watch this space. Hopefully, I wouldn't say maybe Melbourne Comedy Festival next year, but maybe after that I've got something in the pipeline that I want to do.
Well, I definitely can't wait for that. And do you know what? I actually can't believe that it's literally almost 12 months to the day since I met both Milton and yourself here in the UK for us to go up to Edinburgh to do those shows. Can you believe that? 12 months? 12
months, man. Fucking, it was a ride. It was a fucking ride.
I'll tell you what, for everything that you've gone through in your life, everything that I know I've gone through in my life, I think Edinburgh, that entire experience, it was to me it was one of the best experiences in my life. I think as far as comedy goals, it was always Edinburgh. I mean, for years I've been talking about Edinburgh. Achieving that particular goal, irrespective of how it went down, and of course we had some great shows, we had some really fucking bad shows, but that's just comedy. That whole experience of being in Edinburgh, being around the people and the town and the culture, and I think also from your point of view, Milton's, traveling to a different country for a few weeks, and me at the time, of course, I'd only been in the UK for less than 12 months. It had that really nice new vibe to it, and I'd never been to Edinburgh before, so it really was like a holiday for me as well. That was one of the best experiences, I think, for all of us. And I mean, I remember seeing a huge change in you as far as your attitude and everything, because of course I've watched you go through so many things in your life. I met you after you'd gone through that horrible relationship, where you're probably still in it when I met you, to everything in between. We've done comedy together, we've caught up, we've just been great friends, and I've seen you go through your amazing highs and your really fucking horrible lows. But to me, Edinburgh was special because it was, in some ways, I think it was almost like the pinnacle of things. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think in your particular case, it was almost like the start of a new chapter.
Absolutely was. And it's a chapter that I'm fucking loving.
And that's amazing, man. That really is. So, look, Mick, I wish you all the very best. And I'll have to make sure I'm in Melbourne for one of your shows, because I'm looking forward to seeing how not only have you evolved as a comedian, but as a person as well. And anyone who's out there in Melbourne or anywhere around the world where Mick Moore may be on socials or touring, you must check him out, because he's the guy that you didn't know you have to see. Just don't look above the knees.
Yeah, that's it.
Mr. No Pants.
Mr. No Pants, yes. Yes, Pants Freeman. That's my superhero name.
Pants Freeman. I forgot that one. I love it. Look, Mick Moore, thank you so much for being on the Identity Crisis podcast, buddy, and I wish you all the very best for everything in the future.
Same goes, motherfucker. Love you, JNewtz. Keep doing what you're doing, brother.
Thank you for listening to this episode, and remember, it's only an identity crisis if you choose to make it one. It's okay to not be okay, so speak up and talk to someone, or be the one that someone can turn to in their time of need. Don't forget to follow this podcast wherever you're listening, and if you're interested in being a guest on the show, send me an email at jnewtzcomedy@gmail.com. I'm JNewtz, and I'll see you next time.